Greetings, my name is Russ Moody, and this is my first battle report with featuring my Orcs and Goblins army. Alright, a little bit about the army selections here. What's going on at the local gaming group is that we are doing 3,000 point armies, and they're Ard Boy style lists. So everything you're going to see in the battle reports for at least the next little while are going to be super hard lists, and maybe not even the things you'd expect in a friendly game, almost to the level of competition. And so, like for instance, he's got 3 Vargulfs, and probably in a friendlier game you're probably not going to see that. But now, alright, then with that we're going to go right into my deployment. I won the roll off, so here we go. First picture, we have wolf riders on the left flank, 2 board chariots on the left, and I realized later that that was probably a big mistake, and which I should have realized at the time. I kind of figured that they were faster than they were, but anyway, so that you don't want to do that with your chariots. And then next to that you got the black orc horde. Alright, and next to them you see I've got 4 river trolls. And then what's next to that is that's a horde of savage orc biggins with dual choppas. Next you see I've got a level 2 night goblin shaman just hanging out by himself. 40 some odd night goblins with 2 great weapon wielding characters. There's 3 fanatics in there. And on the far right are my boar boys. There's an orc big boss and the banner of eternal flame in that unit. So next we'll go on to the vampire counts deployment. First, he's got a whole bunch of things. On my far right, his far left, he's got a unit of ghouls, about 30-35 of them. Next to that, he has a unit of grave guard, and you see those 2 things in the middle there, those are actually Vargulfs. And then behind them, there's another unit. I'm not sure what those were, but it's got a vampire in there who's got the crown that allows him to pass off his weapon skill 7 to other units. And right here you see on his right flank he's got a unit of about 40 ghouls there, and then the tree that's sitting there is eventually going to be a tree with a Vargulf in it, and he's actually making that all by hand. So when his army's done, it's going to look spectacular. So next, going on to Orcs and Goblins turn 1. And what you'll see here is my wolf riders. They haven't vanguarded yet. That's actually the vanguard. They haven't moved yet. And then the chariots move up and the black orcs move up. Next to that you see my trolls move forward. And the savage orcs actually failed their animosity and then rolled a 1. Now they've also got my level 4 caster in there, which means that I have pretty much no magic this first turn. And not that it matters because he's channeling so many dice and gets so many dice as a vampire player that I can't do much, and everything else just kind of moves forward. Alright, going on to his turn 1, and as you see, he just kind of moves everything forward. The 3 Vargulfs all center and gather in the forest, which I thought was a really good move, because if I enter that forest I'm going to lose my steadfast, and makes me less likely to actually just want to charge on in there. This next picture, what you see here is Irresistible's Comet of Cassandora, and that's the resulting miscast, which I think kills somewhere near 10 grave guard, which was kind of good, except for now I've got a comet which is probably going to come down on my head. This is my turn 2, and not a lot happens here. As you can see, I move up with my chariots, my wolf riders move into the flank, the black orcs surge forward, and my trolls, except the black orcs actually move just so that the entire army, the savage orcs, can catch up, and so not a lot of movement there. As I said here, you see that the savage orcs sort of managed to catch up, so I'm more or less flush along that entire line. And you can see that 8-sided dice represents the comet. It did not come down on my magic phase, but waited for later. And these are my boar boys, which again, they failed animosity and decided to charge the ghouls in front of them, which was a real shame because they could actually see those Vargulfs, and they have the banner of eternal flame, and had they charged in, I probably wouldn't have been able to take at least one of those Vargulfs out and then overrun into the second one. Alright, going into his turn 2. and all he does is those Vargulfs and the three in the front, they all charge straight forward into my Savage Orc Biggins. And in the ensuing combat, you can see they trigger the Fanatics. The Fanatic goes at one of those Vargulfs and actually just bounces off him. He did like 5 wounds, but he made all of his regeneration saves. So, over on the right, this picture is my Boar Boys failed their fear test on Leadership 8, and then were beaten by the ghouls and decided to run away. So, yeah. Alright, moving on to my turn 3. You see that everything on this left flank just advances. It all marches forward, trying to get into combat as quick as possible, because I figured that I had to sweep him on the left and get at that main unit in the back as quick as possible. Over here, fighting against the Vargulfs, I actually fail my fear test, and they're going to take a bunch of casualties, but it allows the Vargulfs to survive. The previous round, I got all those Vargulfs to about 3 wounds apiece, but couldn't seem to pop one of them. And then I sent in my Orc War Boss in an attempt to try and save the day. He kind of fluffed his attacks. He only did 1 wound, and so all 3 Vargulfs just stood there trying. So yeah, and then this round, though, I think my Savage Orcs also failed their fear test, and that was disastrous, as it was on the rerollable 10, I think. So, meanwhile, over on my right, you'll see the ghouls managed to beat my Night Goblins, I think, just barely by 1, and so they ran. The good news is the Boar Boys had rallied with that character, and were able to absorb the charge. Now going on to his turn 3, things are fastly winding down. He did quite a bit of damage, and in this round, I think this is actually where I failed my fear test, and so he's just going to stomp me into oblivion. And by the end of this, and you can see the Fanatics are still dancing around, but they went through both units and did some more casualties right there. Yeah, as you can see by the next picture, he knocked me down to 3. There were 3 of them left. He got off some spell too. I think he enfeebled them, so their strength was 1 lower. And yeah, it was just disastrous. They just and his Graveguard also joined in the fun. So yeah, it turned pretty ugly. And as you can imagine, this of course caused everything there to flee and run away. Luckily, my Lord Artorius here escaped his fate. So going on to my turn 4. And as you can see here, I believe he might have actually charged my trolls, but then my Black Orcs and my Wolf Riders all charge in to join in the fun and start killing off those ghouls that were on the right flank. And as you can see over here, my War Bosses rallied to stand in front of the Vargulf, and then I brought my chariots in to try and do anything, but you'll see. And now we're going to go over to the other flank. On the right flank, you see my Night Goblins rally, and then actually the Savage Orcs and their destruction caused my Shaman to flee, that Night Goblin Shaman, and as you can see in the corner there, he rallied as well. So we'll just go quickly to his turn 4, as not a lot happens. Right here, he pretty much just moves his Vargulf away, and all the Vargulfs kind of scatter to avoid me from having a chance to kill them. His Graveguard turned to face the combat, and then I continue to whittle down the ghouls to about 10 models. And that actually brings us to the end of the game, as my wife called with an emergency and I had to go pick her up. As it turns out, the vampire counts won the game. We decided that most likely I would have finished off his ghouls, at least, and then also the Night Goblins with those 2 characters were actually doing a number on the ghouls they were fighting, and probably would have whittled them down too. But notwithstanding wiping out all those 2 ghoul units, I was still down about 400 points. And so he pretty much was going to avoid combat till, turn 5 and 6, and that would have been it. Things learned. Chariots go in the middle of the board, otherwise they're not going to do anything, and animosity can still mess with the battle plan. Vampire counts, of course, are scary, and that apparently 3 Vargulfs can take out a horde of Savage Orcs. So, anyway, this was my first battle report, and hopefully people enjoy it. Thanks.